So today is the weekend that we celebrate Memorial Day. Memorial Day is basically just the day that we use to honor all the men and women who sacrificed themselves for this country. Um, the meaning goes back all the way to Civil Wars when this actually started, when it was called Remembrance Day. So if you all kind of remember that, did you remember to remember Remembrance Day? Remembrance Day was after the Civil War, about 1860s, and it really was to commemorate all the men and women that fought and died in the Civil War. And at the time, it was a time for them to go and lay flowers on their graves, because that is when they would remember them, that would honor them, and they would lay those flowers. Now, 100 years later, almost 100 years later, in 1970, Memorial Day was basically declared a national holiday, which is going to take place at the last Monday of every May. By that time, Memorial Day had its new name, and it was meant to encompass everybody, not just the Civil War, but everyone that's fought and served in any military branch in any war. And, you know, when we think about Memorial Day, we think about remembering all the sacrifices that have been made. Before we get kind of into the sacrifices, you know, bringing this back to biblical times, when we think about the apostles, the disciples, the people that fought for our freedoms, the people that fought for this church, those were the people that paid the ultimate price to keep Jesus's ministry going, to keep the word going, to keep kind of everything moving forward. So when we think about the warriors, we think about, you know, American freedoms, but seldom do we actually attribute to that to kind of apostles, disciples, the people that fought to keep the word alive, fought to keep the mission going, fought to keep us going. So in John 15:13, it says, greater love has none than those who would lay down their lives for their brothers or their friends. And when we think about the sacrifices that people have made for us in America, if you've never been outside of the United States, you probably don't know what it's like to not have freedom. If you spend any time in the Middle East, China, kind of these countries where freedom isn't necessarily something that is celebrated because they don't have it and they don't know what it is. Not a God-given right. I know we like to say freedom's a God-given right, but it's not. Freedom from sin is a God-given right that we have to accept. Freedom in where we live is not a right. It's something that's fought for. It's something that's bled for. It's something that we have to stand up for. And that's why we celebrate it in America, because we have people that'll go out there and fight for our freedoms, that will go out there and defend what we hold dear. Right? It's not a right that we have to be free, but it's a right that we fight for to be free. And when we talk about laying down one's life, and we talk about let's the military, there's a story that comes to mind that I've heard, and it really goes back to kind of Navy SEALs. And you know, the story goes that a Navy SEAL was once asked, you know, what's the kind of person that you need to be a Navy SEAL? Like, how do you become a Navy SEAL? And when we think about Memorial Day, the story really kind of embodies what that means. And what he said was, you know, when you look at the Navy SEALs, you think there's 800-ish people every year, and out of that 800, I think it's 888, but out of that 800 or so people, attrition is 85%. That means only, you know, 20 to 15% of the people that actually try to be a Navy SEAL make it through. So who makes it through? How do you make it through? And he said, well, you know, you think that the big, strong guys, the big jocks, the big kind of, you know, most popular person, those are the kind of guys that are just going to go through and fly through, and they're going to make it through BUD/S training. They're going to make it through kind of the basic underwater demolition stuff. No problem, they're going to make it through because they're big and they're strong, and there's really nothing that's going to hold them back. But what we said was, no, these football players, these star athletes, these like, you know, jocks and these like really strong and big and popular and all these, those aren't the ones that make it through. Those are the ones that wash out pretty quickly. He says the ones that make it through are the ones that go through all the training. If you've never seen what BUD/S training is, if you've never heard about it before, it's brutal. It's gruesome. I mean, there's a lot of sand, there's a lot of water. You're going out there with your pack on, fully dressed in combat gear, swimming out 1.5 miles, swimming back with someone on your back, picking up these huge logs over your head and running up and down the sandy beaches. I don't know if you've ever run up and down sandy beaches, but that's not as wonderful as it shows in the movies. But this is grueling work. And by the end, you're so physically tired. I don't know if you've ever been so physically tired that you just drop and you say, this is where I'm going to sleep. This is where I'm going to live. I can't go any further, right? If you've never been that tired, it's hard to describe. But he says what happens is, at the end of it, those people that make it, that 10, that 15, that 20%, those are the ones that lay on the beach. Those are the ones that lay in the dirt. Those are the ones that are crying and just hurt and physically unmotivated and tired, but they still reach down and they find the strength to help the guy next to them. And that's what it means. That's what it means when Jesus says, love yourself and love your neighbor as you love yourself. Be able to take whatever energy you have and help the person next to you, to your right, to your left. And that's what that sacrifice is. Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friend. That's what that means. And these are ultimate sacrifices. And there's people in my life, there's people that you probably know, that they might not have paid the ultimate price, but they did make the ultimate sacrifice. Whether it's loss of limb, whether it's loss of arm, whether it's PTSD, there's a sacrifice that's made that you have in combat. Now, when we remember those that died in service, we remember those that aren't seated here, that those that gave the last effort that they possibly could have. And when they did that, they weren't necessarily giving their life because we want to go down to the bank and get, ATM, never run out of money. We want to make sure we go to McDonald's and get, our cheeseburger without onions, or, whatever the case is. They died because they put their friends and the greater kind of good of everyone around them over themselves. And that's why they gave their life. No one gives their life so we can speed up and down the freeways and honk the horns and have lower gas prices. They give their lives so that the person next to them can go home, so that the person around them can have their life saved. So they go out there with, they go out there and they volunteer not to be heroes, but to run into battle, to save their friends, to protect their friends. Yeah, they want to come home, but at the end of the day, these people are going to give their life so that their friends come home. That's what we should remember. That's what we should think about. Whew, that one hit me. So in Proverbs 107:7, it says, the memory of the righteous is a blessing. Now, to give your life in combat, to give your life for your friends is a righteous act. And quite frankly, you don't know if you're going to be able to do it until you're there, right? And all of us can play Call of Duty and we can say we're going to do these things and we can go on social media and, America and all this, but unless you're actually there, you don't know that you're going to do it or not. So it takes a special person to be able to be there. And it takes an even more special person to have given their life. And when we talk about this proverb, it's that when we remember them as a blessing. We remember them for our freedoms. We remember them for their kindness and for their generosity. But often, especially on Memorial Day, again, we're not thinking about what the early Christians were doing, but even more so, we're not thinking about what Jesus did, right? Jesus was the ultimate, sacrificial lamb. He was going out to battle in a way that no one has ever seen a war been fought. He didn't go out there with a sword. He didn't go out there with a shield, guns, cannons, whatever the case is. You can draw whatever picture of Jesus you want, but he's not some mighty warrior with a sword and shield in his hand. His sword is his tongue. His shield is his righteousness, right? But he gave the most. He gave everything that he had, including being separated from God, because he took the sin of the world on him so much that he was separated. He was forsaken. But he did that so we could be free. And he paid that ultimate price. He gave everything that he had to save us. And so when I say, early on, I said, freedom's not a God-given right. It's not. It's something that was fought for, something that's bled for, something that somebody died for. Now, in our case, when we think about the United States, we think about our military. And that's temporary. That's not going to last, right? United States, couple hundred years, great. But we look at Rome, We look at Greece. We look at all these other mighty and powerful nations that have been around and fighting for their freedoms and doing kind of all the things that we're doing, and they're nowhere to be found now. Temporary. Whereas Jesus made a sacrifice that's permanent, eternal freedom, eternal freedom from sin. The sacrifice that was made was one that nobody else could have done. And he didn't come down to earth saying, God, are you sure of these people? Have you seen these people? Have you seen that person? Look at this guy over here, right? He didn't come down to earth saying that. He came down to earth saying, I love you all. I love you all equally. Whether you love me or not, whether you believe in me or not, whether you want to kill me or not, I love you all equally. And there's an equal opportunity for everyone to be free. Now, that's not what we do. That is not what we do. What we do is we say, we love you as long as you believe what I believe. We love you as long as you come to America and kind of give your monies over here. We love you as long as you're not kind of doing anything that you shouldn't be doing, right? That's what kind of we do as on the human side. What God said was, I really don't care whether you think you're gay or straight or whether you believe in Muhammad or whoever else. What he said was, I am the way, I am the truth, I am the light. I am your freedom, regardless of anything that you've done in your life. Ultimate sacrifice. And when we honor our fallen, we honor them with mattress sales and with bizarre appliance sales, and you can get 20% off your car. We honor them in ways that, yeah, they're going to be lucrative, but we honor them personally by just remembering that mattress sale, that car sale, those shirts with all the kind of stars and stripes and things like that. We're allowed to do all those things because of what they sacrificed for, and we're honoring them in a way that shows that we actually understand, and we're going to honor their memory as a blessing to those who they served. They served us, just as I serve you. So Romans 12:1 says, offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. Jesus sacrificed himself for us so that we can have freedom, so that we can be free from sin, so that we have a way to the Father. When we take that sacrifice and we just tear it apart and we just take it for granted and don't worry about that, God will forgive me. Don't worry about this, God will forgive me. I'll speed through this little section and yell at the guy in front of me, but that's okay because God will forgive me. We're really taking that as a way of kind of throwing it in the face of God. He didn't give us the freedom and the freedom from sin so that we can just continue to sin. He gave us that freedom so that we could live differently, live as living sacrifices, live in a way that, it's a saying that I've heard, but, be the person that your dog thinks you are, right? It sounds silly, but your dog thinks you can do no wrong. Your dog thinks that you're the greatest thing that ever existed, and all I want to do is get close to you and love you. Now, why can't we treat God in the same way? Why can't we treat Jesus in the same way? Why can't we treat the person that gave us freedom from sin, from hell and the grave in the same way that our dogs treat us? So purposeful living. And what I mean is live with gratitude for the freedoms that we have. Live in gratitude for the freedoms that you've been given. Live it in a way that reflects the freedoms that you have, because whether you want to believe it or not, you are a walking, living testimony. I don't have to give my testimony for you to understand that I came from a very dark place. I don't need that. What I need to do is live in a manner that people see me and say, I don't know what's going on with that guy, but I want to live like that. Look at him. He's not swearing. He's not drinking. He's not smacking his wife around. He's not kicking the dog. He's not doing any of those things. Okay, occasionally, I give him a little shove because quit eating that, or, get out of the corner there. But the thing is, when we live like that, then we give glory to God by showing that we are living testaments. We're not just some empty vessel that accepted you, and then all of a sudden we can go back and do again. Right? This isn't a rinse and repeat cycle. This is a get clean and start living. Right? Being saved is an active thing. It's not a passive thing. Being saved means your life changes, the way you speak changes, the things you do change, the things you watch, the things you listen to, and so forth. So I encourage you to show gratitude not just for your freedoms that we have in the United States, but your freedoms in eternity, to be able to practice that gratitude and practice that life. Today, we look at practicing that gratitude through hot dogs and hamburgers, which, quite frankly, I have a refrigerator full of. USA. But let me tell you a story. When I was in the Middle East, just so you understand what it means to be free. The story goes that this woman had a coffee shop, and there's two factions in the Middle East, and there's one that's a ruling class and one not so much. And so in her coffee shop, she started putting up some propaganda against the ruling class because, let's be honest, they're rich, they're mean, they want to suppress and so forth. So she put up a couple of signs against them. About a week goes by, and her coffee shop is gone. She's put in jail. Her family has lost their complete nationality. They've been kicked out of the country. They're never going to do this again. They're all in prison, and something so simple that we take for granted, going down to the college and protesting for Palestine or whatever they're doing nowadays, something like that over there is going to get you killed. This woman just put up a little sign, and she lost everything. And not only did she lose everything, her entire family lost everything, kicked out of the country. That's not free. That's not what we have to deal with. We enjoy the ability to be able to do that, whether it offends you or anyone in here, whether it offends the community. We can do that because those are the freedoms that we have. Now, do I think we abuse the freedom that we have? Absolutely. Because we're not giving honor to those that have fallen. Freedom doesn't mean you can go and be a jerk outside of church, or if you don't come to church, or just go be a jerk in general and nothing's going to happen to you. Freedom means that you know the sacrifice that has been made, you know the life that has been lost, you understand that someone has lost their husband, their family, their son, their daughter, and that hole never closes. When you lose a child, when you lose a sibling, when you lose some family member, you have a different understanding of what freedom means, right? So, gratitude in a way that's positive and uplifting. Gratitude in a way not just for our servicemen and women, but for the Lord who saved us, to be able to live in a way that is reflective of our gratitude towards them. Now, one thing we need to be able to do through this kind of gratitude and the way that we live is to teach the next generation. And I was having this conversation with my son-in-law yesterday. There's so much on kind of YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and it's all negative because people are making money by being stupid, and they're doing stupid things. Maybe they're not stupid, but they are doing stupid things, and that's the means of them to make money on their TikToks or Instagrams or YouTube or whatever it is. They're going out and they're doing like ridiculous things that are going to get them hurt, going to get them killed. And we're not doing anything about it. We're encouraging it as adults. So what are we doing to take the freedoms that we have from God, freedoms that we have in this country, and teaching the next generation how to use that freedom, how to utilize that freedom, how to understand the bravery and the sacrifice that went in to American freedom, that Jesus showed on the cross? How do we then teach our kids, our younger generation, our next generation, how to take that and do something positive with it? I want to say this right, but we need to make sure that we're instilling the values and the heart of what kind of freedom is in our children and our grandchildren and on the young people, on the youth. And I said last week that I feel like this place is going to be filled with the youth, people from college, people from the community, youth that are desperately seeking something. Why do I know they're desperately seeking something? Watch social media. These kids need something in their lives, and they're desperately seeking it. And when you can't find it, when you can't find truth, when you can't find freedom, when you can't find love, you're going to fill it up with that crap. Trust me. So we need to be able to teach the next generation, but how do we do that? How do we instill that into our grandchildren? I watched yesterday as we went to my daughter and my son-in-law and the grandkids came, and we went to Hibachi, and we generally pray for our meals. We generally pray in front of our meals. Now, maybe I'm so tired I don't, but I'll thank you God for whatever I'm about to eat here. But I watched as Tina encouraged our grandchildren to pray before we ate. And I heard her little prayer, and look, it wasn't perfect, but it came out of a place of love and just honesty. And I don't care if it didn't make sense. That was a prayer that adults need to learn. But that's somebody instilling in the next generation what it means to be grateful to a sovereign Lord. Yeah, the little hibachi guy cooked all this food, and yeah, the money in my pocket paid for it, but God provided every bit of that, the money, the person, the food, all of it. So being able to give that gratitude and a simple prayer was just, it's beautiful. But we have to be able to instill that value into our children, into our grandchildren, and into the next generation. Otherwise, we're going to keep seeing what we're going to see. And I'm sure today we're going to go home and turn on our social, and we're going to look at the stuff, and there's going to be some new stupid challenge that's Memorial Day challenge, jump off the roof into a bucket of water, or some crazy thing. Please don't jump off the roof into a bucket of water. But that's what it means to have a Memorial Day for us in the United States, for all the men and women, regardless of the war. Not every war we agree with, and not every war was right? Even starting from Civil War, Vietnam, Desert Storm, even to modern day. You don't have to agree with the war. You don't have to agree with the politics, but we should all agree that there's special men and women who have volunteered to sacrifice themselves to make sure that we continue to enjoy the freedoms that we have, in the same way that Jesus sacrificed everything that he had to make sure that we had freedom for eternity, for all time. And there's a good example if you think about eternity compared to our life. And if you can imagine with me that we have a piece of string that goes around this room, and let's say it goes around this room 1,000 times, covers the walls. And if you can imagine this dot right here, that's our lives. That string is our eternity. And so we're worried about the freedoms that we have for this little dot right here. And we're not worried about the freedoms that we can have for eternity. So reflect on what you're grateful for. Reflect on the price that has been paid for us, for our freedoms, and have gratitude for it. And I'm not saying anyone here is ungrateful, but, go out there and be a beacon. Go out there and show that we are children of God by the way, things that we do, the things that we say, the places we go, right? Don't just walk past the guy that dropped something on the ground and can't pick it up. Don't just walk past the old guy that can't make it up the stairs. Please don't pass me up. I need to make it up the stairs. It only takes a second to be nice. It only takes a second to have love. It only takes a second to reach out and to show compassion for somebody else, and to show that, yeah, I care about my brother and I care about my sister. I care about the things that have given to me. I've never seen her walk past an opportunity to touch someone's life. Let me clarify that. To touch someone's lives, to speak to somebody, to really reach out and say, I can see you and I know you're struggling. And let me just have a quick conversation with you. I remember one time we were at the beauty store, which is Sephora or whatever it's called over here, Ulta maybe. And we go in and I just like to sniff around because there's colognes and there's things to be found. And look, I appreciate the occasional bubble bath and the bath bomb. So, I look at those things. So I go outside and I'm waiting for her and she's finishing up. And I'm thinking it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes tops. She's going to be outside. I'm just going to go outside because I'm getting a headache. And an hour later, she comes out. I'm like, what the heck happened in there? You were in the line to check out. Turns out that the woman that was helping her was going through something, and Tina could feel it, or I don't know, maybe she's got a sixth sense. But she ended up ministering to the woman, talking to her, praying with her. It was just like, when God moves on you, you just do it, and it's really what we need to be doing. We need to be showing that, look, we appreciate everything that you've done for us, Lord. And we know the mission is to go out and disciple, to go out and minister, to go out and make disciples of all people. And wherever we see that kind of need for freedom, for release, for just fellowship, that we need to be able to do that. We need to be able to be grateful enough to what we have been given to be able to share it as well. So remember that we're here today in this room, and I'm able to say pretty much whatever I want to without being shut down. But I'm not, because I preach the Word of God, so I'm just going to randomly say all these things. But I'm able to do this. We're able to sing the songs. You're able to come in here and play. We're able to, have coffee and donuts. We're able to do all these things because of the freedom, number one, that has been given to us, not by some godly principle, but by the blood, sweat, and tears of the men and women that have given us that freedom to do what we want to do here. Let's try not to abuse that. But we're also here because we can preach the Word of God, and we can talk about what He's done in our lives because we have been given freedom from our sin, from our past, from all the bad things that we did. Our God never gave up on us, never will give up on us, and He's not looking for all perfect people to come to Him. He's looking for anybody, no matter what you think is right in your life, what you're doing in your life right now, where you're going, so forth. He is wanting to just give that freedom to you. That's the gift of God. So, in closing, when we think about Memorial Day, we think about the men and women. We think about the sacrifice. We think about the ones that pay the ultimate sacrifice. We think about the mindset of these people that have gone out there. But we also think about the disciples, the apostles, the people who furthered the church along, the people that gave their lives. And if you don't know how the 12 actually died, go back and read it because it's not pretty. Nobody died in a way that was like, oh, I just died in my bed. It was horrible, right? Nobody that followed Jesus died in a way that was just nice and peaceful. They sacrificed everything. Jesus made the ultimate sacrifice for us. And so when we think about that, when we think about what this weekend holds, let's not forget the price that Jesus paid and the sacrifice that He made for us.